Recording in progress.
Turn off my phone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that right? I got 9. We have Bob. We have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I got cold. I still got cold.
Due to budget cuts, they had to cut us down to sharing mic.
Run out of batteries.
I did. I ran out of batteries. We don't even make those batteries.
Oh, I think we can probably roll through this pretty fast.
You realize that on the agenda says, before it says don't start before 1:30, and start at 4:30.
All right. Good afternoon. And thank you. Welcome and happy Thanksgiving. This is the November 21st Wichita Area Metropolitan Planning Commission. Thank you all for being here. Before we go any further, I'd like to introduce our newest member, in case you don't recognize him, Mr. Bob Aldrich. Nice cut. All right, with that, opening announcements, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and planning department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the commission and the board will be retained by the secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the planning department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the district court.
All right, our next item is 1.2. Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Fry.
Present.
Mader.
Present.
McKay.
Present.
Dool.
Here.
Bill Johnson.
Present.
Blick.
Present.
Nix.
Here.
Klontz is absent. Warren.
Here.
Joe Johnson is absent. Miles is absent. Zimbelman. Aldrich.
Here.
Williams Bay. Sir, I show 11 members are present and 3 are absent.
Thank you, sir. Item 1.3 is approval of the MAPC meeting minutes from October 24th. I show that Commissioners Nix and Warren were absent. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Williams Bay and a second from Mr. McKay. Seeing no more discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. And we have one abstention, 2 abstentions, Mr. Nix and Mr. Warren. Motion passes 9-0? Yes. Thank you. Item 1.4 is approval of the MAPC meeting minutes from November 7th. Those are not complete, so we're going to defer that to December 12th. Is that correct, staff? Okay. Next item is 1.5, determination of MAPC consent items. So we'll go through these real fast. Item 2.1, subdivision 24-53, one-step final plat Jantz addition. Does anyone from the commission like to hear this item? Seeing none. Yes, sir.
Sir, we would like to provide a staff comment on that one.
Okay, so we will hear item 2.1. Item 2.2 is subdivision 24-12, final plat for South Meridian Commercial Edition, West 47th Street North and South Meridian Avenue.
There's an update on that one also, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we will definitely hear that one. Is that right? Can you have West 47th Street North and South Meridian Avenue? Is that correct address?
It is West 47th Street South.
Okay, so it's just a typo on, thank you. I am not directionally challenged. So, all right, we will hear item 2.2. Item 2.3, subdivision 2024-55, one-step final plat for Young Moon Edition, North 127th Street East and East 29th Street North. Is there anyone from the commission that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, we'll move that to consent. Item 2.4, subdivision 2024-56, final plat for Shear Estates, West 23rd Street South and South 383rd Street West. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we have a staff update on that one as well.
All right, so we will hear item 2.4. So,
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve item 2.3.
okay, we have a motion from Mr. Bill Johnson and a second from Mr. Tony Zimbelman. Is it you? Or is it Chuck? Who was it? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Warren was the second. Seeing no further comment, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. So we will hear items 2.1, 2.2, and 2.4. There are no vacation items, so we'll move to the conditional and PUD and zoning public hearings. Item 4.1, conditional use 2024-230, 43rd Street North and North 143rd Street East. Is there anyone from the commission that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, we'll move that to consent. Item 4.2, conditional 2024-240, a car wash property at East Kellogg Drive and South Glendale Avenue. Is there anyone from the commission that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, we'll move item 4.2 to consent. Item 4.3, a PUD 2024-18. This was deferred from the October 24th planning meeting. This is roughly East Central and North Oliver Road. Is there anyone from the commission that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this item? I see a couple of hands raised, so we will hear item 4.3. Item 4.4, zone 2024-51. This is North Greenwich Road and East 37th Street North. Is there anyone from the commission that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, we'll move that to consent. Item 4.5 has been deferred to January 9th. Item 4.6 has been deferred to January 9th. Item 4.7, DER 2024-11. Because this is a change to the zoning code amendments, we will hear this item.
Motion to approve 4.1, 4.2, and 4.4.
Is that correct? Is that what you have, staff? Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Blick and second from Commissioner Williams-Bay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Normally at this time, we would have our BZA agenda, but we're moving that to the end of today's agenda due to an executive session tied to the BZA agenda. So with that, we'll have our first hearing. Is staff ready? Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Greg Sharon, planning staff. I'm here to just give an update on subdivision 2024-53 Jance Edition. Under item D, public works comments, number 6, the projected traffic volumes along 63rd Street East expected to exceed 200 vehicles per day threshold requiring pavement of the artillery street. This plat is within an urban growth area and is eligible to pay $9.50 per acre fee. At the subdivision meeting, there were some talks about different avenues to pay that fee or possibly getting a waiver. The Public Works and the applicant have worked that out, and the applicant has agreed to pay the fee per the subdivision regulations. So with that, recommend approval of the plat.
Philip.
Just to note that the subdivision committee's recommendation for approval included a delay in the payment in lieu of. And so I think it would be with all default to Sam if I say something wrong, but I think a motion today for approval should be approval per staff comments, which include the payment in lieu of now versus a delay in that payment. So approval of per staff comments and not approval per the subdivision committee recommendation. Did I get that right, Sam?
Yes.
Question, is that the only change difference?
Yes, that's the only difference. That's the only reason we had an update today.
We approve. Some staff comments.
Do we need to hear from the applicant or public on this? We should ask for that, correct?
Yeah, I guess technically you can provide that opportunity. Yes, sir.
Is the applicant or agent here for this item? Any comments you'd like to add? You have up to 10 minutes.
Phil Meyer with Boffman Company, agent for the applicant. No, we are in agreement with staff comments and we're fine with the approval the way they presented it to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Does anyone from the public like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for action.
I will second the motion for approval.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner McKay and with a second from Commissioner Aldridge. Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, a call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Appreciate the additional background there. All right, next item, sir.
Greg Sharon, planning staff, here to present an update for subdivision 2412, South Meridian Commercial Edition. Under item A in the staff report, the staff report was just changed to item A, number 1, requires the applicant to extend sewer to all lots. Water is available. Water transmission, acquisition, main benefit fees, and water distribution in lieu of are due for all lots. So that comment was added. And also on item A, number 6, utility plan was needed to be submitted. I got confirmation from Public Works that utility plan has not been submitted and there are anticipated easements that would be possibly required. And I have spoken with Public Works and they recommend to defer this item until such time a utility plan is approved, until a utility plan is received, reviewed, and approved. So with that, as the recommendation is to defer until such time.
Okay. Is the applicant or agent here?
They're probably not here because I said it would be deferred.
I know, I just want to make sure that they were going to give me a nod in agreement if they were here, so. Yes, Sam.
Greg, could you give us an update about where we are in terms of the time frame when this application was put in, as we're supposed to make a decision within 30 days?
I do not know the time frame. I just know that to defer until such time until a utility plan is.
Yep.
But you're saying they have 30 days?
Generally, the board has 30 days, or the subdivision committee has 30 days to make a decision, and then the MAPC would do it. Would as well. I would just recommend that you make sure that you check for the timeframes, and that will be within the timeframe whenever the deferral, we set a deferral date.
So, Sam, do we actually have to set the deferral date, or can we set just an indefinite and let staff work on planning that timeline?
It's always preferable to have a specific date set, just so that we don't allow it to fall through the cracks. And that's important to go ahead and get a specific date.
Commissioner Aldrich.
Well, I have a question for legal then. Let's say if you make it 30 days from now and have a date, and that date comes, they don't have it done. Does that mean that it's going to be automatically denied for another year, or then what?
This is Scott Wadle, Planning Department. A couple of things I'd like to throw in for consideration is, number one, perhaps this could be considered as not being a complete application because there's materials that's required that the applicant has not provided. And then the second part, so in terms of the shot clock, perhaps that will, because it's not a complete application, it doesn't officially start. And the second part is in terms of the deferral, Sam's right, the preference is always to have a known date, but as Commissioner Aldrich has pointed out, because there are some uncertainties about when and how that's going to be produced, because there's no public notice on this one, this doesn't have the same re-notification that's required as part of a zoning case, which is really something that encourages us to set that known date. So we've got a little bit more wiggle room with an indefinite. So I just want to offer those.
Okay.
So would it be possible, since the applicant's not here, to move to withdraw this case until the
Application's complete and then bring it back in, doesn't that solve this whole issue?
The only issue on this is the utility plan, which typically this was, in this case, something that Public Works requested. It is most likely, since the next meeting is January 1st, that the agent has time to submit that to Public Works and get it reviewed for that time. So.
And Greg, Public Works had requested a deferral until that's submitted. So the action that they're recommending that the MAPC take is to defer this item until that required utility plan is submitted?
Correct.
Approved?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I don't see a problem with deferring without the indefinite date. Just staff understands that they'll just have to put it back on the agenda.
Okay. Any other questions or? All right, to entertain a motion to.
Make a motion that we defer indefinitely.
All right, so we have a motion to defer indefinitely from Commissioner Aldrich with the second by Mr. Warren. Commissioner Warren. Seeing no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
And just a quick note on implementation for that. So my understanding from the staff perspective is that we will defer indefinitely until we get the materials that are necessary.
All right. All right, next item.
Afternoon, Craig Sharon, planning staff, here to provide update for subdivision 2425, or 24, sorry, 56. The Shear Estates. There was update on the drainage plan. There were some revisions that needed to be made to the drainage plan. I did get confirmation from Scotland back from County Stormwater. They did provide revisions, but there are just a couple of other things that need to be addressed. But Stormwater is fine with the Planning Commission approving the plat subject to those two minor revisions. And also Evergy at the subdivision committee meeting, there were a comment from Evergy that additional easements may be required. So they were looking into further whether additional easements would be needed. And it's my understanding from talking with the applicant that they have been in contact with Evergy and no additional easements will be needed. I have reached out to Evergy just to confirm that, but I have not heard confirmation yet from Evergy. But it is my understanding from the applicant agent that there will be no additional easements that will be needed. And so the agent is here to supply more information if needed.
You said they are here?
Yes.
Okay. Would you, if you would, please approach and maybe you can answer that question for us? That'd be great.
Matthew Tucker, BHC 165 South Rock Island Avenue. Yes, after the subdivision meeting, I spoke with Evergy about the easement concern. Their concern was that they thought the current residence was provided off of the north-south street just to the west of the plat. And it was confirmed between now and then that, in fact, Evergy has lines in 23rd Street and feeds south into the lot, the western lot. Her concern was that they had to reach across the western lot to the eastern one. That's not the case. They'll have the room in 23rd Street as per their original comments where they didn't ask for easement. So we believe that we won't have any issues there.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant agent? Thank you, Matthew. All right. Seeing any other questions from the commission? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. I hear a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
All right. Let the record state that Commissioner Miles has arrived, and this is the motion to approve with the staff update and conditions. Correct, Mr. Johnson? Okay. And second still stands?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Just want to be clear. All right. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. And with Commissioner Miles abstaining. Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you. All right, so now we move to item 4.3. Is that correct?
Good afternoon, everyone. Christina Reith with planning staff. This is case number PUD 2024-00018. The applicant is requesting a zone change. The parcels that you see in question on the screen are zoned currently limited commercial, B multifamily, and MF29 multifamily residential district. And they're requesting a zone change to planned unit development to create the Oliver Square planned unit development number 132. The subject site is 4.5 acres in size and located on the southeast corner of East Central Avenue and North Oliver. The subject site features several parcels with vacant buildings that were built around 1953, as well as several undeveloped parcels. The vacant building has been vacant for I think at least a year now. So they are requesting the zone change in order to allow for the redevelopment of a site into a mixed-use commercial marketplace. They are proposing to utilize standards that are the same as CBD Central Business District, namely that there are no minimum setback requirements or parking requirements. And they also request a number of exceptions to the regulations set forth in CBD zoning, such as allowed uses on site, signage, and compatibility setbacks. They also propose a maximum height to be 45 feet. Staff is recommending that the maximum height of Lot 1 of the PUD be restricted to 35 feet due to the proximity of residential uses. In addition to that, staff is recommending several changes to the proposed land uses. In the PUD document, which is in your staff report, they are requesting that the underlying zoning is CBD. Staff is recommending that it should be LC Limited Commercial Business District. And the justification for this is that Central Business District allows a lot of higher intensity uses, particularly in the industrial category. So we're talking like vehicle storage yard, warehousing, welding or machine shop, wholesale business services, things that are not, that staff feels are not conducive to and for this location. Uses of nightclub in the city, entertainment establishment in the city. Staff is recommending that they are ancillary or accessory to event center or restaurant uses. And just for clarification, entertainment establishment in the city, we recently changed the zoning code so that if it is less than 300 people, it's considered an entertainment establishment where there's live music and alcohol. If it's more than 300, it's a nightclub in the city. So we are also requesting that car washes are prohibited. That is something that is allowed both in the limited commercial and the central business district uses. And should there be any wireless communication facilities on site, that they are limited to a height of 120 feet per what is in the limited commercial district standards. The primary use of this will be retail center, either single-use tenant or multi-tenant. They are requesting to use the site as a marketplace that allows outdoor recreation and entertainment, food trucks, alcohol sales, et cetera, et cetera. For food trucks, they can't be permanently parked on site. Due to the site's proximity to a school, an existing school, and some other residential uses along Oliver, staff is recommending that the hours of operation for tavern and drinking establishment, entertainment establishment, and nightclub in the city, that they are limited, so the sales of alcohol are limited to the hours that are listed in your staff report, as well as outdoor recreation entertainment. The screening and landscaping provisions shall remain subject to the requirements set forth in the zoning code. If there is a zero lot building setback, as allowed in CBD zoning, the applicant proposes to omit that landscape street yard requirement. Screening is the same as CBD zoning. And again, we are recommending that the height is limited to 35 feet on site. In terms of signage, they are requesting a number of deviations from the sign code in regards to what types of signs and the number of signs and the maximum amount of square footage per street frontage. Staff is recommending that it is per the limited commercial district zoning. I'm not going to go too much in depth as I do have a table laid out in the report for you guys on that. The character of the neighborhood is low density and with commercial and residential uses. To the north of the PUD across Central Avenue, we have a convenience store, a retail space, and a restaurant. To the south is where we have the school. Properties to the east along North Harding Avenue are developed with duplexes, and then to the west, we see a liquor store as well as single-family residences on the other side of North Oliver. A little bit of case history. It was platted in 1930, and then in 1953, an appeal was filed to the BZA to erect a commercial building without the minimum required parking spaces, and that variance request was granted. There have since been 3 zoning change requests on site. One of them turned out to be an incomplete application, and the other 2 never went to fruition. The requested zone change is in partial conformance with the community investments plan. So the north portion of the site is determined to be appropriate for commercial uses, and the remainder of the site is appropriate for residential uses. They are proposing a mixed-use redevelopment, so that does align with the goals of the future growth concept map. The locational guidelines within the community investments plan, one of them recommends that major commercial and employment centers should be located at intersections of arterial streets and along highways and commercial corridors. And what they're proposing is a commercial enterprise, and that's going to be at the intersection of 2 arterial streets. The requested zone change is in conformance with the Wichita Places for People plan. There are several strategies that are outlined within this Places for People plan, and one is to create walkable destinations that support the various neighborhood environments in the established central area. And then strategy 6 of the plan, it encourages infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment in which it is occurring. It is staff's opinion that the revised PUD language, along with the intent of the applicant, helps make the proposal more contextual to the surrounding area. So planning staff is recommending approval of the application, subject to the provisions of the Oliver Square PUD and the conditions that are listed in your staff report. As you can see on pages, 7, 8, and 9, that's where we're seeing what staff is recommending as opposed to what the applicant was initially proposing. So in our analysis and with our recommendation comes the golden rules. So at the time of the staff report, staff did not receive any comments. I received 2 additional comments from the public. Those were forwarded to you guys via email on Tuesday. I have since received a phone call. Yesterday, I received one from a nearby property owner who was in support of the proposed development. Let's go through some of the site photos, please. This is looking east towards the site when you're looking from the west side of North Oliver. Next slide, please. And this is looking east towards the 1953 building on the other side of the other building that we saw earlier. Next slide, please. This is looking south towards the site from the north side of East Central Avenue. Next slide, please. And this is looking south towards the other building on site. Next slide, please. This is looking west towards the site, towards one of the buildings. Next slide, please. This is looking north away from the site. Next slide, please. This is looking south away from the site. Next slide, please. This is looking west away from the site towards the liquor store. Next slide, please. And this is a picture of some of the residences on North Oliver Avenue. Next slide, please. And that concludes my site photos. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Does anyone, yes, Commissioner Duell.
Is the applicant own or have a contract to own all of the subject property?
Yes, there may be some confusion within our GIS system because the one on the very corner with the 3 buildings, those are owned by Exchange Holdings LLC. If you look at the properties just south of there, it is under a different LLC. However, the address is the same, and I have confirmed with the agent for the applicant that they are the same person under that LLC.
Any other questions? Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Stand by. Is the applicant agent present? There we go. Please give us your name, address, and you have up to 10 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. Kim Edgington, PSC Consulting, agent representing the applicant. The reason this is under several different ownership entities is because this project has really taken a long time to come to fruition. And consolidating properties that were under multiple ownerships has taken a lot longer than we had hoped to get to this point for the redevelopment of this property. But finally, we are here today with this PUD to bring about a revitalization of this intersection. This PUD, we worked with staff a lot to come up with some reasonable parameters for the redevelopment. We have also worked extensively with the City of Wichita Public Works Department and engineering. We are committed to replatting this property, and at that time we'll be dedicating some additional right-of-way along Oliver. I'm going to use along here. The intent is for that old Dillon's building to be taken down. And with the additional right-of-way, that will allow for the construction of a right turn decel lane in the northbound Oliver traffic, and also to move the sidewalk off of the street. Right now, that sidewalk is just directly on Oliver. So our intent is to dedicate that additional property so that we can bring about a much safer path along Oliver, with Robinson Middle School being immediately to the south. That is a big concern of ours, to make sure that that happens. And we also, in the plan, you can see we'll be dedicating 30 feet of drainage easement. Been working with city public works staff. There is a major project in this area for drainage and have committed to dedicating that area to help the city make that project come to life, and deal with some of the drainage issues. They are satisfied that that will be more than adequate to meet their needs for the installation of any drainage facilities in there. We have also had some exchanges with the school district and with the principal directly of Robinson Middle School. Their concerns have mainly been the same as ours: drainage and safety. So they are pleased with the plans that we have to help those situations. And overall, we think that by doing this, we can bring about some improvements for everyone involved. As far as staff comments, thank you, Christina. You did a really good job of outlining everything that's going on. We are almost entirely in agreement with all of staff comments, with the exception we do want to verify, because the way it's written on this staff proposal is a little unclear as far as building heights. We are perfectly agreeable to limiting the building height on Lot 1 to 35 feet, which is the smaller parcel over here. But we would ask that the other parcel remain a maximum building height of 45 feet. We have been working towards possibly developing some multifamily project on this lot, and which would include some commercial uses on the main floor of buildings, and then possibly multifamily on the upper levels. So we would ask that you make sure that we could retain that 45-foot building height for Lot 2. The second issue is only regarding one proposed use that we would like to ask to remain on Lot 2, and that is for a car wash. We have had some significant interest in locating there, and that would only be on Lot 2, though. We are perfectly agreeable with restricting that on Lot 1. Other than that, we are completely in agreement with all of staff's comments regarding restrictions on signage, restrictions on uses, restrictions on hours of operation, as long as those operation hours for the sale of alcohol don't apply to restaurants that serve alcohol. Like in the past, Albero Cafe was in that strip center, and they were a restaurant that served alcohol. And so as far as uses like that, we would expect that those hours of sale would not apply. And I would be glad to stand for any questions that you might have.
Okay, real quick, I'll get to you, Commissioners. Kim, your two requests for the building height on Lot 1, we'll address that one first. Did you take that up with staff?
Well, I think staff mentioned in her report from the podium that they only wanted that height restriction to 35 feet to apply to Lot 1, but it's not necessarily written that way in the report.
I think Philip has an answer to this.
Yes, sir. Kim is correct. Our narrative in the staff report, our intention was only to limit the height on Lot 1. I apologize that it did not get reflected in the PUD language.
Staff is fine with limiting to
yes,
this.
in our review and in the composition of the staff report, then it was only to limit it on Lot 1.
Okay. And then the second request of the permitted use to allow car wash on Lot 2, was that addressed with staff?
That was, we discussed that preliminarily. Staff did they did let us know that they would not recommend it at all on the, and we are willing to accept that if there is a car wash allowed on lot 2, that it would be subject to final site plan approval by the planning director. We are perfectly agreeable to that. Have no problems at all.
And I see Philip shaking his head in agreement, so it looks like.
So part of our discussion as staff is typically a car wash at this location would require a conditional use if it wasn't a part of this. And part of the conditional use is a site plan, which then allows us to review its orientation and other things. And so that was one of our reasons for not wanting it, is just not knowing where it's going, where it is in relation to the residential. But it's news to us of the being willing to be subject to site plan approval, but yeah, that's our background.
Does that come back to this body for approval, or is it done administratively?
It would be done administratively, unless you put a condition on it that it would have to come back, but typically they're done administratively, even with conditional uses.
Okay. Commissioner Nix, did you have questions, or did I cover that already?
No, I was kind of curious about the proposed tower of 120 feet. Where would you put that? If you had your mouse there, Kim, and where would you potentially put a 120-foot tower?
Oh, are you speaking of the wireless communication facility that would be allowed?
A wireless communication facility / tower. Where would that go?
Well, I don't think staff has requested to have any limitations on the location or restrictions as far as the location.
We wanted to beef up the PUD language to make it subject to a zoning classification, because different zoning classifications allow for different height. Overall, wireless communication facilities also have to meet a compatibility height standard of a 1-to-1 ratio. So a 120-foot tower would have to be 120 feet away from a property zoned TF3 or SF5. Depending on any future location of one, it doesn't sound like that's right here on the cusp. The height of the tower and the location would have to be determined based on those factors.
I understand that, but if you want to increase the limit to 45 feet and you're going to build a 2-story multifamily facility, aren't you kind of limited as to where this tower can possibly go or not?
I mean, the site itself is very limiting as far, and that is not something that we have any intention of doing. It's just a use that is allowed in LC zoning, which staff is recommending that the underlying uses reflect LC zoning. So essentially, if there were to be a wireless communication facility, it would almost have to be dead center in this property in order to meet any compatibility setback requirements, but that is not something that we have any intention of doing.
Commissioner Williams-Bay?
Yeah, I have a question for staff. Since a car wash is being considered now, would the public have an opportunity to have some say about that? How would that go? How would we handle that?
Yeah, good question. And yes, so if that's included as an approved use, then it would be subject to them submitting and having a site plan approved, is what's been discussed so far. So there would not be a further opportunity for members of the public to comment on a car wash.
But the request for a car wash was included with our initial request. That was in the language that we submitted in the proposed PUD.
So staff rejected that, right?
Staff has requested that it not be allowed in the list of proposed uses.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Blick, and then Commissioner Dooley.
Hey, Kim, how close is a car wash to this location? I see one at Crown Heights. Are they still in business or not? Do you know of?
Yes, they are. And
Okay.
they went through a BZA process, I want to say maybe 10 or 12 years ago for the construction of that car wash. So this hearing would serve as essentially the conditional use hearing as part of the PUD process for a car wash. And then staff would have the ability to approve a final site plan essentially what it would do is prevent us from having to go through this entire exercise all over again. The time and expense of submitting an amendment to the PUD and redoing the ownership list, re-notifying everyone. So rather than doing that, redoing all of that work at a later date, we are asking to do that all at once today with the site plan approval by the staff.
Commissioner Duell.
But as I think as staff previously stated, we would have the option to, if there's going to be a conditional use, to bring it back for approval to the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
Correct. And again, this is the public hearing that they have made the request for the car wash. It's just staff didn't agree with it. So.
But we would want to see a plan that showed the detail of the traffic through it, et cetera.
Certainly is a possibility as a motion. Any other questions from the commission? Mr. Warren.
Just where are we at with hours of operation for units that sold liquor in a restaurant? What's the staff recommendation versus what the applicant's asking for?
The applicant did not have any hours of operation in their application, and so all the hours of operation are the staff recommendation. So there's no difference other than we are recommending hours of operation be tied, and those are the ones that are listed in your staff report. And again, those are for alcohol sales and then outdoor entertainment.
And we are simply asking that the alcohol sales not apply to restaurants that serve alcohol. That only apply to a tavern and drinking establishment.
Okay, Commissioner Mader.
Having trouble with the alcohol question. Just reading it as quickly as possible, limiting it from 4 o'clock till 10 p.m. And I'm seeing that to all of it, whether it be restaurant or anything else. Are you okay with that, or is that?
Well, I think as I mentioned, if you look at a restaurant like Albero Cafe that would potentially serve wine and cocktails over the lunch hour and happy hour in the afternoon, and you've got a liquor store immediately across the street that starts liquor sales at 11 a.m. So we are asking to not have that limitation to 4 to 10 p.m. for restaurants that serve alcohol. We are fine as far as, if there is a tavern and drinking establishment in having those restrictions on the time. But rather than having that, and rather to not have that apply to restaurants that serve alcohol.
Okay, so we're both basically talking about being able to serve alcohol with lunch in a restaurant.
Right. Where an operation that has at least 50% or more of its sales in food sales.
So the question for staff, could item E be changed to just say tavern and drinking establishments shall be limited to the following hours? Would that suffice?
So Kim, you keep talking about restaurants, more than 50% food sales.
Mm-hmm.
What if that restaurant decides to have a band? So now it's an entertainment establishment. Are you meaning entertainment establishments you also don't want limits for liquor sales? Or
We are
just
fine
restaurants?
it's just restaurants that we would like to not have the limitation on. Entertainment establishments, we are perfectly agreeable to having that time restriction. We don't want there to be a conflict with, kids coming out of school at the middle school, that those hours wouldn't start until they've pretty much cleared out.
I think it could be created so that the restrictions on the times would not apply to a restaurant, capitalized restaurant, which is a defined term.
So item E could say alcohol sales shall be limited to the following, excluding restaurants.
That's certainly one way of wording it, yes.
Okay.
And we would be perfectly agreeable to that.
Okay. But that's a request from the applicant, not necessarily staff, but staff's agreeable that it could be worded that way. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the agent applicant? Mr. Commissioner Williams-Bay.
Approximately where on lot 2 is a car wash being proposed?
Well, it would not likely be on the hard corner. It would more than likely be to the south, somewhere along Oliver here. We more than likely would not have it situated towards Bleckley, but it would be oriented towards Oliver.
Toward Oliver?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions for the agent applicant? Seeing none, probably stand by, Kim. At this point, any members from the public like to address the commission? Good afternoon. Please give us your name and address, and you have up to 3 minutes.
My name is Trish Heilman. I'm at 139 South Fountain. And I just wanted to come and sort of support the applicant. And we've had a lot of people, as this came out on your agenda, that sort of went, wah, especially considering Robinson and Hyde and all the kids that travel across this corridor. I've had a lot of email and phone interactions in the last week, including with teachers and the principal and talking to Kim a couple days ago, and just sort of hearing from her their absolute front of mind intentions about kid safety and creating more buffer space on that sidewalk. Really working with city staff on the drainage, because we just know the Bleckley River is a real thing, and making sure that they're going to be a part of that solution and not exacerbating that problem. We also, Kim and I talked about the fact that this is a multi-use development, that this used to have a lot of residential, and that this is a residential area. And we really, I'm personally very concerned about putting residential back in here, but making it so that it fits and it works. And the potential uplift that she's talking about on this square, that's been a pretty rough little area for a long time, sounds really positive to me. The things I appreciate are what staff has done, because even thinking about like 4 o'clock limit, I talked to Kim, a parent talked about, hey, what even 4:30? Because those middle schoolers get out at 3:10. Those elementary kids get out at 4:10. Give it even a little more time to get those kids cleared out of there before you're doing outdoor entertainment with potential alcohol. Anyway, these are just thoughts that have come from the community. But again, I'm very thankful that the applicant and the agent, I haven't talked to the applicant, I suppose, but the applicant has been very willing to engage in community discussions and take input. And so as a turnabout, hopefully of future things, where I'm here to say, I'm excited. And I'm thankful for the communication that the agent has given and the thought process that the applicant has for this lot. Thank you. No questions, right?
Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Jack Patton, address 337 South Rutan. I also am in favor of this because the area in question has been neglected, to say the least. I remember when it was an old Dillon store, so that's how long I can remember that. The only minor concern I have is on these 4 lots, is to kind of assure that the residents who are there aren't subjected to, excessive noise or lighting or situations like that. So as long as we can kind of have a little bit of a buffer between them and the project, which I don't see as a big problem, I'm pretty well happy with it. As I noticed, they're not tearing down any houses or anything like that. So as a neighborhood representative, I'm glad to see it come in, and would Be interesting to see what kind of restaurants they bring in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none. Next speaker? Next speaker? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. I didn't think she'd have any since both speakers were in support, but thank you for
It's
correcting.
Kim Edgington for the record, yes, and that did throw me off a little bit because it's not common. I did just want to address the issue with screening to the east, and we will have the required zoning screening in place along with a 30-foot drainage easement on that east property line. So just kind of wanted to mention that. That will be part of the plating. We have already started doing the surveying and readying the new plat to reflect that.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant agent? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll bring it back to the commission for comments and discussion. Commissioner McKay.
I'd like to ask a question of staff. Would you give us the proper wording to get around not get around, but to allow the omission of the hours reflected to the restaurants that serve liquor?
Yes, sir. I think so. We're talking about general provision number 4E. Currently says alcohol sales shall be limited to the following. That could say alcohol sales shall be limited to the following, excluding restaurants.
So just adding that language to it.
With that in that language, I'll make a motion to approve.
May I offer a friendly amendment to that? Would you also allow building height on lot 1?
Yeah.
To be, and thank you. And then also the conditional use to allow the car wash on lot 2 per staff review?
That's 3, not 1. 2, not 1.
Mr. Chair, I think it was lot 2 for the building height.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, that's why I'm asking for a friendly amendment.
Yes, I agree as a motion.
Okay, then I will second his motion if you're in agreement with those items. Everyone clear? Yeah. Commissioner Mader?
Still having an issue with the car wash. At this point, I think the car wash kind of got lost in the middle of all of this. It's clearly there, but from what I've talked to people in the neighborhood, I don't think they really noticed it. So I'm a little concerned about it coming in through administrative approval and not neighborhood comment.
So this is the opportunity. It was on their application, from what I understand. Staff just didn't agree with it, and so that's why we've had the public hearing on the car wash, correct? Because this was part of their application. So by asking it as part of the motion for it to be reviewed, were you asking for it to be brought back to this body, or were you doing it by administrative review, Commissioner McKay, as part of your motion?
Administrative review.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, does that help?
No. It is just the opposite of what I'm concerned about, because again, several people had talked to me about it. Nobody had mentioned car wash. And we know how people really feel about car washes very strongly. I would just like to see us add in that it come back to the commission for a review,
So I
for
understand that.
public hearing.
I'm just going to push back a little bit because it is an allowed use as by right under this current. It was just staff that removed it. So the public shouldn't have been surprised that it was in there.
I
correct?
misunderstand. I don't fully understand what you're saying in regarding to under the existing zoning. It is approval.
Yeah, it was. Maybe staff can help me.
So the applicant submitted an application for the PUD. The applicant request included a car wash. So it's been the request for a car wash on this location was part of the original request. It is only staff's recommendation that's removed. So anyone from the neighborhood who had questions about the application or reviewed information had the opportunity to get more information from staff to know about a car wash being requested at this location. So the public hearing that was heard today is the public hearing regarding whether or not a car wash is appropriate at this location. The motion on the floor is saying it is appropriate at this location, subject to staff review and approval of a site plan. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and that's still what I have a problem with, but we'll vote it.
Commissioner Blick.
When it came up to the car wash, I was looking at proximity, what other car washes were nearby, but as today, we just had a case, we just approved a car wash right before this, and they have one right across the street in a residential neighborhood that is actually closer to a residential neighborhood than what this one is. This one's actually further away, and I would support the car wash also.
Commissioner Bill Johnson.
I guess anybody that's concerned about car wash should just go up Mays Road, North Mays Road. We got some of the same brands just across the street from each other.
Right. Any other commissioners? All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Going to call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay. Nay. We have 2 nays. The rest were all yays.
Just for the record, the nays were Mater and Williams Bay.
Yep. All right, thank you. Next item, which is that it? 4-7. Yes, thank you. Justin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairperson and Planning Commission. Justin Constantino with the Planning Department. I'm here to talk about development signs. Next slide, please. This is a typical development sign. This is what we hand out at the front counter over in the office, and this is what is posted whenever there is a zoning case. You are all probably pretty familiar with it. Next slide, please. The purpose of our discussion today is to provide information, answer any questions, and then the request today is to adopt the proposed amendments to the Unified Zoning Code. Next slide, please. I will discuss the issue at hand, background. I'll talk a little bit about what other communities do in terms of their development review signage, development application signage, possible regulation changes, text changes, and the draft review and update process. Next slide, please. The issue at hand, next slide. Should development signs be required for zoning or subdivision cases in the county? That's where this question originated from, was the Board of County Commissioners. And we have proposed text changes to the Unified Zoning Code requiring development signs in both the county and the city. So next slide, please. A little bit of background. Next slide. Public notifications currently come in the form of letters. They are also published in the newspaper, signs, as we had previously mentioned, as you saw the photo of. Public notifications are also posted on the webpage, and in certain circumstances, we send it out via email. Next slide. The purpose is to notify nearby property owners of a zoning case in their particular area. The recipients are indeed property owners, not necessarily tenants or apartment dwellers or anything like that. The recipients are the owners of the subject properties. And all of the addresses that we get for these zoning cases come from a title company. That's required as part of the application process. Next slide, please. Here's an example of a published notice that you see in the newspaper. Next slide. The purpose is to notify the general public about the Planning Commission meeting and cases on the agenda. So if you don't receive a letter, there's plenty of opportunities to view that. That is a requirement by Kansas state statute. Next slide, please. Here's an example of a web page shot. This is from our web page. Like I said before, every case that we have, every zoning case is posted on the web page. Next slide, please. They are also searchable by GIS, by our GIS mapping system through zoning case tracking. Next slide, please. They're also available and shown here on the MABCD Building Department website. Next slide. And here's another example of the city web docs where they are shown. Next slide. Email notifications. We do have a planning department email list. So neighborhood associations, homeowners associations, and business associations do receive emails City and county staff members also receive emails regarding those, and then follow-up communications when there's a planner on duty. If people have questions, general questions about the zoning case, we have a planner on duty that is able to assist in those cases. Next slide, please. Again, what is a development sign? The purpose is to notify the general public of these cases. Currently, the way that the text is written is that it's a city policy only. So what we are proposing today are text changes to the Unified Zoning Code to add official language to the zoning code. So we have a city policy currently not required by the state or by the Unified Zoning Code. And the policy requires that these development signs are posted at least 13 days prior to the public hearing. The fee is $5 per sign, and one sign is required per zoning frontage. So if you have a corner lot, it'll be 2 signs at a cost of $10. The enforcement of that is all of you, the Planning Commission. Next slide, please. This is language from the application. Each zoning application has kind of a front page, front couple pages of instructions. It does mention the 13-day policy, the $5 signage fee, and requires that those signs are posted prior to the public hearing. Next slide, please. Here's additional language from that application that shows posting signs, instructions, how it should be posted, stakes, all that information. Next slide. And here's some additional language from the application. Next slide, please. Other communities. Next slide. We noted what other communities do in a state of the practice report. We provided this information to the Board of County Commissioners twice. We provided this information to the Advanced Plans Committee as well. Next slide. Here's a few examples of what other communities do and what their signage looks like. Very similar to ours, contains basic information, zoning case number specifically, so when people come in, they know the planner is able to look up additional information about that, and additional information, general information about what is happening in that zoning case. Next slide, please. Possible regulations. Next slide. So this will be an update to the Unified Zoning Code. As I mentioned before, it's currently a city policy, but this update to the Unified Zoning Code will require development signs posted for zoning cases both in the city and the county. Next slide, please. The next slide. Enforcement, as I mentioned before, Planning Commission. So technically, if there's an issue with the posting of the signage, it will typically be brought up at a Planning Commission meeting. So folks will occasionally bring up the fact that a sign was blown over, they didn't see the sign, but typically that is addressed at this forum here. Next slide, please. Sign standards. As I mentioned before, Planning Department administers these signs. When people come in for their application, we tell them how to post it, the posting time, and the location. Next slide. Quick draft review and update process. Next slide. As I mentioned before, this topic originated with the Board of County Commissioners. So the Planning Department was tasked by the Board of County Commission to look into this UZC change, this draft UZC change. We had this discussion several times, but we brought this item to them in September and then October. And then in November, MAPC Advanced Plans Committee reviewed this language and unanimously recommended full approval to the MAPC. If it is approved today, Board of County Commissioners, Wichita City Council in January. Next slide, please. And again, just to recap, the recommended action for this afternoon is to adopt the proposed amendments to the Unified Zoning Code regarding changes to the posting of public notices and hearings. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner McKay.
In advanced plans, we discussed the time element. We had 13 days, and you showed us signs of 2 or 3 different cities. Do you know what their time?
I don't know exactly what their posting is for other cities. No, I don't.
Is there any regulations that tells us how many days it should be?
No, and that's what would be part of this. That, because there's not a state statute that requires a sign.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Warren.
Is that, the city's got a time frame on theirs, so the wording was similar to cities.
Yes, sir. It actually is very similar. It's the same. So 13 days is what's required by the city now.
So this would mirror that.
That's correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Blick, did you have your hand up?
Yes. I noticed when driving around and I'll see these signs out, a lot of them are in the easement instead of on the property line. They're actually out by the street. And that's great because notification, but I know we have a sign code within the city of Wichita that they can't be out in the easement. Do you direct them on every single one of these to make sure they don't put them in the easement?
I'm not sure if there's actual language in that application that says keep it out of the easement, but that's something that we could verbally convey when people come in, just to make sure that we're on top of that.
And then second thing is, have you guys thought about one sign per parcel? The reason why is when you go to a location and you see a field out in the county, it's great because you know that area is going to be, that's where it's at. It's on that parcel. And then you go in the city of Wichita and you'll see an empty lot and you know that's happening. Just like the last case, they had 18 parcels. They'll put the sign in the furthest end where it's an empty lot. So you think, oh, okay, the empty lot's going to be developed, not knowing it's also going to be the shopping center and everything else. Have you looked at per parcel or something different as in that notification?
Yeah, I'd like to offer, currently it's per street frontage, but the other thing that I could offer is that at a later date, if you'd like, we can look at the guidance documentation that we provide, the instructions we provide from the planning department, and that'd be an opportunity to get into the specifics. I think this one's really kind of high level about, do you think that there should be signs required? And then if we want to update, the instructions later on, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on a case that I'm familiar with from recent, where it was the definition of subject property versus staff instruction of street frontage, right? And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I understand this is high level right now, just by being able to mirror what the city is, but I think there can be some frustration, similar to what Commissioner Blick was talking about, is what parcel is being asked to have a change versus the entire development activity, and where those signs get posted and where they're allowed and where they're not. So that's not for here, but I think it's something that we need to address later.
And what we can do, sir, is we can put that on a list of items to cover with the MAPC advanced plans.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Warren.
Generally speaking, I'm not in favor of adding layers of bureaucracy and restrictions that add time. So I'm not a great supporter of this, but having it come from the commission, the planning, or the Board of County Commissioners themselves, I think this is what they're looking for, so.
Yeah. Any other comments? Seeing none, for questions for staff, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Here's your name and address. You have up to 3 minutes.
Yes, Jack Patton, 337 South Rutan. I'm in favor of, combining everything to make it standardized and even for everybody. I just had a question, would this cover all applications, or would the short-term rental folks, would that still be hidden or secretive since it's not a notification?
Yeah, I'll let staff answer the question for you. Thank you.
Okay. So there's two parts to that one. The first one about short-term rentals, because that's done through the administrative permit process and was specifically a concern that was brought up in a dialogue that went on about signs for those cases, that would still be excluded from the requirement for the signs. And then what was the second part that Jack had on there?
It would be for which cases would the signs be required for, and that would be for zoning cases, including variance cases, vacation cases, and conditional use cases.
And I do want to point out that it would not apply to subdivision cases. just zoning cases.
Just zoning. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for action and/or questions. Commissioner Aldrich.
I would like to make a motion of adoption of the proposed amendment to the Unified Zoning Code regarding the changes to the posting of the public notices and hearings.
We have a motion from Commissioner Aldrich and a second from Commissioner Miles. Yes, Scott.
Quick clarification question. Does that also include recommending adoption by the City Council and Board of County Commissioners?
Yes, that was part of the staff recommendations and comments. And I also like the little emoji on the mail thing too. That was cool.
All right, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. We have one nay, and that'd be Commissioner Mader. Is that correct? No, Commissioner Warren. Sorry, thank you. Not this time. All right, motion passes 10-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. 11-1. Did we gain? Is it 12? I guess it is 12 now. Yeah, that's right. Okay, and next is we will close no, we won't close. We will now move to the Board of Zoning Appeals agenda. And the first item for that is approval of the prior BZA meeting minutes from November 7th. I see no one was absent from that meeting. So I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Miles. Need a second. Second from Commissioner Williams Bay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next item, item 2, BZA variance request, BZA 2024-69. And I think Christina is going to do this one. But we don't need to hear it because staff is motion to, or recommended action is to approve.
Right.
Unless there's someone here that would like to hear this case. Seeing none, staff's recommendation is to approve, so we can just bypass the presentation and take a vote. Unless there's, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Miles. Uh-oh.
Sorry, one quick thing.
I'm trying to do this.
You're doing great. Everyone is. It's just, as part of that motion, do you find that all 5 criteria have been met?
I do.
All right, so we have a friendly amendment to Commissioner Miles. I need a second.
I'll second.
And a second from Commissioner Nix. No more discussion. I call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Unanimous. All right. Our next item is executive session. And so I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss BZA 2024-44 pursuant to KSA 75-4312 subset B subset 2 for legal consultation with the city attorney, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship relating to pending litigation. The executive session is required to protect attorney-client privilege and the public interest. The executive session will begin at 2:50 and end at 3:05 p.m. The meeting will resume in the second floor conference room. We are recessed. Yeah, we'll come back. So we're gonna go over next door and then we'll come back. Do we want to do it here or do we want to go? Has returned from an executive session. There was no binding action taken. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Miles, a second from Mr. Williams-Bay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. With that, have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, everyone.